the left and right side of the table. The left and right we are talking about refer to the political left and the political right, and the table we are talking about is the dinner table. Food today is as political as welfare, guns, gay marriage, and abortion. To demonstrate this, consider 3 quotes on food in the modern age. From Maureen Ugel's excellent book titled In Meat We Trust, we find the following quote on the first page. And we quote, "Although we Americans eat more meat than almost anyone else in the world, our meat-centric diets are killing us, or not, depending on whose opinion is consulted. The nation's slaughterhouses churn out tainted meat and contribute to outbreaks of bacteria-related illnesses, or not. The only thing commenters might agree on is this: in the early 21st century, battles over the production and consumption of meat are nearly as ferocious as those over, say, gun control and gay marriage." Unquote. From an interview with social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, he remarks, and we quote, "I painted it as though it's conservatives that do all the purity stuff. Liberals do it too. It's commonly joked that conservatives are always moralizing sex and telling you what you can't do, but my God, just try to order breakfast with someone who is on the far left." Unquote. Haidt does not say that as a conservative. In fact, he is a moderate who leans to the left more than he does the right. When I showed Haidt's quote to a liberal friend of mine, he laughed and said the following, and we quote, "And conservatives don't care what they put in their bodies as long as it's quick, convenient, and cheap." Unquote. Food has always been political. What foods people eat and how they eat it reflects their social customs, their values, and their political order. To see this, let's contrast the feasts of ancient Persia with those of ancient Greece. Ancient Persia was ruled by kings with complete and total power. Peace and political stability then depended on the strength of the king. A weak monarch risked a civil war that would ultimately lead to thousands of deaths and an economic wreck. Moreover, the outcome of the war would only be a different monarch. It was thus important that food and feasting clearly highlight the king's power and the pecking order of his subordinates. During the First Persian Empire between 550 and 330 BC, grand feasts would be held where guests were seated according to their political rank. Those favored by the king were served better food and more lavish silverware and cups. One did not have to guess the rank of each individual. It was evident in what and how they ate. During the same time period, ancient Athens formed a culture that was staunchly opposed to monarchy. It was a direct democracy. Citizens didn't bow to meet each other, as many other cultures did at the time, as bowing is what someone does before a king. Among Athenian citizens, each man was the social and political equal to another. But many of its residents were slaves, not citizens, and the rights of women were harshly suppressed. Still, as far as the ancient world goes, Athens was a leader in human equality, and this was reflected in their food. After Athenians defeated Persia in a major war, they began building their own empire and spreading their democratic culture. Their social feasts contrasted sharply with their Persian counterparts, in that each citizen would receive the same food in the same proportion as every other citizen. In their symposiums, where citizens were climbed on couches to philosophize and listen to music, they not only drank the same wine, but made sure to drink at the same rate. If you think about it today, we are conflicted between the Persian and the Athenian food culture. On the one hand, the government provides vouchers where the poor can go into the same grocery store patroned by the rich and buy food. On the other hand, the poor's access to these stores is limited by their location and the dollar value of those vouchers. Food was political in the ancient world, and it is political now, but the nature of the politics has changed. In the readings for this topic, I will argue that when it comes to food, politics tends to revolve largely around one's feelings about big government or big business. Democrats/liberals in the U.S. tend to fear big business, while Republicans/conservatives tend to fear big government. We will also see that arguments about controversial technologies like genetically modified organisms, GMOs, don't just revolve around the technology itself, but the corporations who invent and use it. Both conservatives and liberals in the U.S. do express concern over GMOs, but liberals express a particular intense concern over the corporations who patent the GMOs. To illustrate, the liberal magazine The Rolling Stone published an article in July of 2014 called Lone Star Crazy. The left-leaning author sought to characterize those on the far right and make them seem a little nuts. What caught me was their reference to the right's concern about GMOs, something usually associated with liberals. And we quote, "American patriots like Wolf, excited by concerns, both real and obviously paranoid, revolving around gun rights, land rights, the surveillance state, genetically modified food, and other assorted liberty issues, have come to this field to make their voices heard." Now, if the right is concerned about GMOs, why aren't they joining with liberals on the West and East Coast to try and ban them? The article suggests, rightly I believe, this is because that would require government regulation, and the right is more concerned with reducing regulation than they are with preventing GMOs. Now, if you are like me, you are uncomfortable grouping all people into one of two political parties. We all know that people are more complex than that they disagree with some of their own political party platforms and agree with some of their adversaries' platforms. Just remember, we are not describing any one person or even the average American as being Republican or Democrat. Instead, we know that there is a spectrum of political attitudes, and some lean more towards one extreme than the other. So when we say liberals/Democrats, we are not talking about all registered Democrats. We are talking about a particular political group which attracts some people more than others. We are talking about a political attitude, not a person. It's hard to talk about the politics of those with moderate views because there is a considerable degree of ambiguity. It is easy, though, to talk about those with extreme political views because those views are more stubborn and thus have less ambiguous descriptions. We describe the politics of a people by the extremes of its political spectrum because it makes communication easier. This grouping of people as liberals versus conservatives is useful because some of the stereotypes are indeed true. Surveys by my colleague Jason Lusk have shown that self-described liberals favor more government regulations on food than self-described conservatives. And that is exactly how they portray each other. Grouping people as liberals or conservatives is important because political ideology has an enormous impact on beliefs about social issues, including food. A number of our topics in this course are about the carbon footprint of food, where a larger footprint denotes greater global warming. Studies have shown that people's belief about whether climate change is caused by humans depends far more on whether one is a Democrat or Republican than it does one's education. As we will see, surveys and voting behavior show Democrats and Republicans have contrasting views on corporations and government. One side portrays big government as a bully, and the other side views big business as a bully. To illustrate, the liberal author and filmmaker Joel Bacon has written a book called The Corporation, where he says, and we quote, "The corporation is a pathological institution, a dangerous possessor of the great power it wields over people and societies." In this book, Bacon diagnoses the corporation as pathological, a psychopath. Yet, some on the political right diagnose government in a similar fashion. When the right-leaning author P.J. O'Rourke was a guest on the Stossel Show, he brought with him a copy of the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and he used it to diagnose politicians as possessing narcissistic personality disorder. The idea was that politicians only care about themselves, so one shouldn't give the government as much power as it wants. Now, most people do not have such strong aversions to either big corporations or big government, but most do fear one more than the other. And these differences keep agriculture controversial because many agricultural technologies are developed and first adopted by corporations. Finally, I'd urge you to try and make yourself feel comfortable discussing the politics of food. It is my observation that two equally kind and smart people can adopt opposite political views. If you have made the same observation, you should feel neither shame nor pride in having a strong political affiliation or a moderate view. If you are a citizen of a democracy, you are given the blessing of having a voice in food policy. If you belong to a market-based economy, you are given the blessing of being able to choose for yourself the foods you eat. If your country allows free speech, you have the blessing of being able to talk openly about politics, including the politics of food. It is then your ethical duty to participate in politics in the voting booth, in the grocery store, and even in casual conversations, and certainly in this course. Know that even though this course will not shy from discussing food politics, there is no attempt to make you adopt one political position or another. It is my hope that by the end of this course, you are still unsure if I'm a registered Democrat, Republican, or neither. The goal of this course is not to tell you what you should think, but to help you think. I want to help you form an educated opinion, whatever that opinion might be.